Let's not sugarcoat it. Most millennials didn't just miss the 401k train. We waved at it as it sped by and said, "I'll catch the next one." Only there wasn't a next one. Let's lay down the facts. A 401k match is free money, usually between 3% to 6% of your salary, offered by your employer as an incentive to save for retirement. Yet, according to Vanguard's 2023 report, 25% of employees didn't contribute enough to receive their full match. Let's do some math. A 22-year-old earning $45,000 annually with a 5% employer match is leaving $2,250 on the table every year. Over 20 years, with no growth, that's $45,000 just gone. But with average market returns of 7% compounded yearly, that same $2,250 a year turns into over $110,000 by age 42. By retirement at 65, it's close to $600,000, all for doing nothing except saying yes. We didn't skip this because we were rebellious. We skipped it because no one explained how compound interest turns time into wealth. Instead, we saw a few $100s missing from our paycheck and panicked. What the top 0.1% in financial literacy would say? They'd tell you that not maxing out your employer match is like saying no to a legal, guaranteed, tax-deferred lottery that pays you every year for life. And here's the hard truth. If you're 30 and haven't started contributing, you don't need a miracle. You need urgency. Because the longer you wait, the more expensive that mistake becomes. Let's talk automation. Not the tech buzzword kind. We mean automating your savings. One of the most underrated habits that could have made thousands silently pile up in your name. Here's a simple truth. If you don't see the money, you won't miss the money. But if it hits your checking account first, temptation strikes. Suddenly, that $100 was meant for Uber Eats, not your future. The Federal Reserve reports that nearly 37% of Americans would struggle to cover a $400 emergency. That's not a budgeting problem. That's a behavior problem. Now imagine this. A 25-year-old sets up a direct deposit of $200 every paycheck into a separate high-yield savings account. That's $5,200 per year. Over 10 years, without lifting a finger? They've got over $65,000, assuming a 3% interest rate in a decent high-yield account. Now, most people say they'll save what's left after spending. But psychology says otherwise. You don't save what's left. You spend what's available. The top 0.1% don't rely on discipline. They design systems that protect them from themselves. It's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. Even $50 automated weekly since age 23 is $130,000 plus by age 45, assuming 7% annual returns. That's the price of not automating, an invisible fortune lost. Ask yourself this: do you really have a money problem, or do you have a system problem? Let's get brutally honest about credit cards. They're not financial tools for most people. They're emotional weapons we use to buy the life we wish we had. Here's what the data says. The average American under 35 holds $3,700 in credit card debt, according to Experian's 2023 credit report. But that's just the balance. At a 22% interest rate, typical today, that $3,700 balloons into over $6,000 in just 3 years if you only make minimum payments. Why? Because interest compounds too. But unlike investing, this compound works against you, fast and quietly. Now think back to your early 20s. Was that $150 dinner worth $300 a year later? Was that impulse tech splurge worth $1,000 in long-term cost? The real cost of debt isn't just money. It's freedom. It's being unable to invest because you're trapped in repayment. And here's the kicker. Most credit card debt wasn't for emergencies. It was for lifestyle signaling, trying to look successful before actually becoming successful. The top 0.1%? They don't use credit to look rich. They use it to build credit scores, earn cash back, and then pay it off in full, every single month. The illusion we bought was this: if we could swipe like them, we'd be like them. But you don't swipe your way to wealth. You pay your way through focus, planning, and restraint. Hard truth. Every unnecessary item you charged in your 20s could have been an ETF or index fund. And every interest payment you made was money someone else invested instead of you. Let's talk about one of the most silent money leaks: renting with no endgame. We're not here to demonize renting. It makes sense in many stages of life: mobility, flexibility, job changes. But the regret comes when years go by and there's no transition plan to build equity. Here's the real-world math. The average rent in U.S. cities rose to $2,048 per month by late 2024. That's $24,576 per year, or $245,000 over 10 years. After 10 years, the landlord has a mortgage paid down. You have receipts. Now compare that with a first home purchased at 28 for $250,000 with a 3.5% down FHA loan. You'd only need $8,750 to start. And after 10 years, that home, appreciating just 3% annually, is worth $335,000 plus. That's over $85,000 in equity, plus what you've paid into the principal. Even after taxes and maintenance, you're miles ahead. Yet so many didn't even consider buying. Why? Because no one explained opportunity cost. Because the comfort of renting felt easier than the responsibility of ownership. The top 0.1% don't just track expenses. They measure wealth direction. They ask, is this spending helping me build equity or just keep up appearances? This isn't about owning versus renting. It's about long-term strategy. If you rent in your 20s, fine. But if you're still renting at 40 without investment property, equity, or ownership anywhere in your financial plan, you've just made someone else rich monthly. Let's talk about one of the most dangerous financial habits that feels harmless: lifestyle creep. You start with a $40,000 job and a $1,200 apartment. You move up to $70,000, and suddenly you deserve a $2,000 high-rise. Then it's the $200 dinners, $300 sneakers, designer bags, because I've earned it. And just like that, your spending climbs with your income. But here's the reality. Lifestyle creep steals your raises. It tricks you into feeling richer while keeping you financially stagnant. The Federal Reserve shows that the average savings rate in America is just 4.1%, even though incomes have risen. Why? Because expenses rise faster than discipline. Now, let's flip it. Had you saved just 50% of every raise starting at age 25, you'd have $500,000 plus by age 45, assuming average returns. But what did most people do? They spent the raise before they received it. They upgraded the apartment, the car, the clothes, but not the asset column. The top 0.1% don't inflate their lifestyle with every win. They treat raises like wealth accelerators, not spending excuses. They might make $200,000 but live like they earn $80,000, not out of scarcity, out of strategy. Because when you delay lifestyle gratification, you buy options later. The option to retire early, to take risks, to invest big, to say no to toxic bosses because you've built financial muscle. So ask yourself, have you been celebrating raises with richer habits or with richer liabilities? Let's talk about something most people didn't take seriously in their 20s, the emergency fund. Why save for an emergency when everything's going fine? You're young, healthy, employed, the money's tight already. Besides, I'll figure it out when it happens, right? And then it happens. The car breaks down. You lose your job unexpectedly. A medical bill hits, or a family emergency drains your checking account overnight. According to Bankrate's 2024 data, 57% of Americans can't cover a $1,000 emergency without going into debt. Not because they didn't earn enough, but because they didn't prepare. Now here's the real cost of not having an emergency fund. You borrow money at 20% interest to solve a problem that would have cost nothing if you had saved. You pause your goals, you spiral into stress, and you pay extra to be unprepared. Let's do the numbers. If you would save just $50 a week from age 23, by 30, you'd have over $18,000 sitting in cash reserves, enough to absorb most life shocks. That kind of buffer buys you peace, freedom, and most importantly, leverage. The top 0.1%? They treat emergency funds as risk insurance for their dreams. They don't touch investments when things go wrong. They tap their emergency fund and keep building wealth uninterrupted. Ask yourself, would a surprise $1,000 expense set you back, or would it just be a line item in your savings plan? Let's kill a dangerous lie. It's okay. I'll start investing when I make more. Sounds logical. Feels safe. But in the world of wealth building, timing beats income. Here's what the data says. If you invest $200 per month starting at age 22, earning a conservative 8% annually, by 60 you'll have $627,000 plus. Wait just 10 years to start at 32? Same $200 per month. Same return. You retire with only $275,000. That 10-year delay cost you over $350,000. That's the real penalty of waiting. Not the amount you didn't invest, but the growth you forfeited. Let's get deeper. The average millennial says they'll start investing seriously in their 30s or 40s. But by then, many are already burdened with a mortgage, kids, or aging parents. Now it's harder to start. Now the stakes are higher. The top 0.1%? They don't wait until they feel ready. They invest small, early, and consistently, because they understand compound growth loves time, not size. They don't see investing as optional. It's oxygen for future freedom. It's buying tomorrow's peace with today's pennies. So here's the hard question. How much wealth have you already missed out on? Not because you didn't earn enough, but because you waited. And how much longer will you let time win? Here's a cold truth no diploma prepared us for. The school system taught trigonometry, but not taxes. You learned how to dissect frogs, but not how to build a credit score. And so, a generation walked into adulthood with degrees, dreams, and financial blindfolds. We signed student loans we didn't fully understand. Ignored 401k matches because no one explained what vesting meant. Used credit cards like free money until we woke up to debt and shame. Here's the real-world impact. A 2024 National Financial Capability Study found that only 34% of Americans could answer 4 out of 5 basic financial literacy questions correctly. That's not just a gap. That's a silent epidemic. Meanwhile, the top 0.1%? They teach their kids about equity, assets, compounding, and risk before they hit puberty. Because they know what school fails to teach, life charges for, with interest. Want an example? Not knowing the difference between simple and compound interest can cost you tens of thousands in credit card debt and rob you of hundreds of thousands in retirement returns. The tragedy? So many smart people feel dumb when it comes to money because no one ever broke it down plainly, and pride keeps them from asking. But here's your reframe. It's not your fault you weren't taught, but it is your responsibility to learn now, because ignorance is the most expensive debt you'll ever carry. So ask yourself, what would your net worth look like today if financial education started when your schooling did? And what will it look like if it starts today? Let's talk about debt, the kind that starts small but multiplies like mold in the dark. You took out a $4,000 credit card to build credit. Then a $12,000 car loan because everyone else had one. Then came a personal loan to consolidate other debts. And before you knew it, you weren't buying freedom. You were leasing stress. Here's the reality. Debt isn't always bad. But uncontrolled consumer debt is compound interest working against you. Let's do the math. If you carry just $6,000 in credit card debt at 24% APR and make only minimum payments, it will take over 15 years to pay off, and you'll pay more than double what you borrowed. That's not just money lost. That's time stolen from your future. Now imagine redirecting those monthly payments to a retirement account, or ETF instead. You'd build assets instead of renting liabilities. The top 0.1% use debt differently. They borrow to acquire appreciating assets, like real estate or business capital. not to fund lifestyle inflation or escape boredom on Amazon. But here's what's even deeper. Most people didn't get into debt because they were careless. They got in because they lacked financial margin. No emergency fund, no savings cushion, no plan. So debt became the default. But that's fixable. Awareness is step 1. Discipline and automation is step 2. And reframing debt as a temporary tool, not a permanent habit, is the breakthrough. Ask yourself, are you building a future or just financing the present? Here's a simple truth that separates the financially successful from the paycheck-to-paycheck crowd. Pay yourself first. Sounds basic, right? Yet most people do the opposite. They spend first on rent, food, social life, and what's left? Maybe some money at the end of the month to save. But here's the secret weapon. Set up your paycheck to automatically deposit a fixed percentage, even just 10%, into a savings or investment account before you see the rest. Why does this work? Because if you don't see it, you don't miss it. Your brain never gets the chance to talk you out of saving. According to a 2023 Bank of America report, employees who utilize automatic savings through payroll deductions save nearly twice as much as those who don't. Now imagine this power combined with company 401k matches. If your company matches 50% up to 6%, that's free money literally handed to you. Not taking full advantage of this is like leaving thousands of dollars on the table every year. The top 0.1% treat savings like a non-negotiable bill, not a wishful afterthought. They automate, they optimize. They turn saving into a silent wealth machine working while they sleep. Ask yourself, are you paying yourself first or hoping there's something left after spending? Because the difference between a millionaire and a paycheck-to-paycheck earner could be as simple as a few clicks in your payroll settings.